This story is told in a cinematic style, but it comes from the kind of military rumors people only repeat in private. Names, locations, and unit details have been changed, not to make it scarier, but because some stories are only told at all when the truth is buried. We were deployed to a base that didn't officially exist, and for almost 3 weeks, nothing happened. No attacks, no mission updates, no reason for why we were there. Then one night, a high-priority order came through our system. It had full clearance. It passed every check. It came from command. But when we looked at the signature, the room went silent, because the officer who sent that order had already been dead for 3 years. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're into realistic horror, military mysteries, and stories that feel like they could actually happen, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Now, lower the lights, get comfortable, and let's go. We arrived just before sunset. The desert looked endless, flat, empty, colorless. The kind of place where distance lies to you. Things looked close until you started walking toward them. Then they just stayed there, fixed on the horizon, like they weren't part of the same world. The convoy slowed, turned off a cracked service road, and rolled toward a fenced compound that appeared so suddenly it felt less like we found it, and more like it had decided to show itself. The base was smaller than I expected. 2 long barracks, a communications building, a maintenance shed, fuel storage, a watchtower at the north side, and a perimeter fence wrapped in a fresh razor wire that looked newer than the buildings themselves. Nothing about it looked important. Nothing about it looked like the kind of place people disappear into. But the silence hit us before anything else did. Not the silence of peace. Not the silence of somewhere calm. This was a pressed-in kind of silence, like the air had been packed too tight. Even the engine noise seemed to die too quickly after the trucks shut off. No birds, no insects around the floodlights, no distant highway, no aircraft overhead, just wind. And even that sounded wrong. Muted. The briefing lasted maybe 4 minutes. A captain none of us knew stood under the floodlight with a clipboard and said exactly what he needed to say, and nothing more. Maintain position. Rotate night watch every 4 hours. Monitor all communications channels. Do not cross the east perimeter without direct authorization. Await further orders. That was it. No objective. No threat briefing. No explanation for why we were there in the first place. When we were dismissed, Harris looked at me and said, "That can't really be all." I told him what people always tell each other in places like that. If they wanted us to know more, they would have told us. It sounded reasonable at the time. Now I think the truth was simpler. There wasn't anything they could say without admitting they had no control over what we had been sent to guard. The first week passed clean. Wake up, gear check, patrol, meals, watch, sleep. Routine can make almost anything feel normal if you repeat it enough times. The body settles before the mind does. By the 5th day, the base already had its own rhythm. You knew when the generator would kick harder. You knew which hallway light flickered. You knew which door stuck in the comms building and which bunk in the barracks squeaked whenever Keller rolled over. On paper, everything was smooth. In person, it wasn't. The first strange thing was the logs. I was on comms rotation with Harris that week. which meant most of my nights were spent inside a narrow room full of humming monitors, radio boards, and terminals old enough to make you wonder why they were still in service. It was the kind of room that always smelled faintly of dust and heated plastic. On the third night, the East motion sensor triggered at 1:11. Standard alert, 2-second tone, then reset. Nothing unusual. Except the East patrol team was sitting in the mess hall at the exact same time, finishing chow before their next rotation. I checked the internal clock, checked the system time, then asked if anyone had crossed into that zone. Nobody had. Harris shrugged and said, "Probably wind." But there hadn't been any. The next night it happened again. Then a camera feed marked movement between the maintenance shed and the fuel tanks. When I pulled the clip, it showed an empty strip of concrete and nothing else. Then a radio check came in from a call sign assigned to a man who was asleep 20 feet away in the barracks. Little things. The kind of things you can explain away if you want to. And we did. For a while. By the second week, the whole base felt different after dark. During the day, it was just ugly. Heat, glare, dust, boredom. At night, it turned into something else. The floodlights created hard islands of visibility with thick, black space between them. The desert beyond the fence became one endless wall of dark. You couldn't look at it for too long without feeling like it was looking back. That was when people started hearing things. Not everyone admitted it. But everyone did. Slow footsteps outside the east fence. Pacing the perimeter at a human pace, steady and deliberate. Once, Keller swore he heard metal tapping against metal 3 times in a row from somewhere beyond the razor wire, like someone dragging a ring against the posts just slowly enough to be intentional. Patrol checked it. Nothing. No tracks. No heat. No movement. After that, nobody liked drawing East Side watch. One night, Daniels came into the comms room just before midnight and stood behind me without saying anything. Daniels was the oldest among us, a staff sergeant who never wasted words and never raised his voice. He had the kind of presence that made people stop joking when he walked into a room. He looked at the monitor, then at the east fence camera. "Pause that," I did. "What am I looking for?" I asked. He pointed to the lower right corner of the frame. At first I didn't see it. Then I did. A shape in the sand just beyond the fence line. Not a person, not clear enough for that. Just a dark vertical interruption where there shouldn't have been one. Thin as a post, but not in the right place to be a post. I scrubbed back 3 seconds. Gone. Forward 3 seconds. Gone. Only there in one frame. Harris leaned in. "Compression artifact." Daniels kept staring. "Maybe," he said. But he didn't sound convinced. The next morning, a line of footprints appeared outside the east perimeter. One set. Deep, evenly spaced. They came in from the open desert, stopped about 5 feet from the fence, then turned and walked parallel to it for almost 30 yards before disappearing over hard rock. No one said it out loud, but we were all thinking the same thing. If someone had gotten that close to a restricted military site, where had they come from? There were no roads out there, no structures, no settlements, no reason for anyone to be walking through that desert at night. And if it wasn't a civilian, why hadn't command said anything? The answer came in the usual form. It didn't. When Daniels reported the tracks, the response from higher command was brief and almost insultingly calm. "Continue monitoring. No further action. That was the first time I saw Daniels look genuinely unsettled, not scared. Worse, dismissed. By the third week, the base had changed us in small ways. People started sleeping in shorter stretches. Meals got quieter. Jokes stopped landing. Harris kept checking the same terminal history every night, like he expected it to confess to something. Keller asked to switch out of East Side Watch twice. Daniels denied it both times. "You keep avoiding one side of the fence long enough," he told him, "your brain starts filling in the dark for you." It sounded like leadership. It sounded solid. Then Keller came back from patrol at 3 o'clock one morning with sand on his boots and sweat on the back of his neck despite the cold. Daniels looked up from the table. "What?" Keller hesitated. Then he said, "I heard someone say my name." Nobody moved. "On comms?" Harris asked. Keller shook his head. "Outside the fence." Daniels' expression didn't change. "What exactly did you hear?" Keller swallowed. "My first name. Quiet, like they didn't want anyone else to hear it." "Did you answer?" "No." "Did you see anything?" "No." Daniels held his gaze for another second, then nodded once. "Get some sleep." Keller left. Nobody touched their food after that. At 2:14 a.m. 3 nights later, I was back in the comms room with Harris when the center terminal woke up by itself. No incoming tone, no handshake, no login request. The screen simply turned on. White text, black background. Incoming directive, priority. Maximum Harris straightened immediately. "You seeing this?" "Yeah." I logged in manually and opened the packet. Movement order, live, timestamp current, encryption valid, coordinates attached, direction, east sector, past the marked perimeter line. I felt something tighten in my stomach. That line mattered. It had been the only specific restriction we were given on day 1. Harris was already reaching for the radio. "Stand by for movement," he said. "Wait," I told him. Too late. The barracks were waking up. Doors opened, boots hit concrete. Muffled voices crossed the yard. Routine took over because routine always takes over first. The body trusts structure even when the mind hasn't caught up. I kept reading. The authorization chain was perfect. Everything that should have stopped a bad order from becoming an active one had failed to stop this one. Then Daniel stepped into the room. He took one look at the screen and moved closer. "Scroll down." I did. His eyes landed at the bottom of the document and stayed there. For a second, I thought he was just verifying rank and clearance. Then he said, "No." Harris looked at him. "What?" Daniels pointed at the digital signature. "That officer is dead." The room seemed to get smaller. I looked back at the screen. Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Voss. The name meant nothing to me, but not to Daniels. "He died 3 years ago," Daniels said. "Overseas. We got confirmation before I rotated home." Harris gave a quick laugh that sounded forced even to him. Then the system pulled an old signature. "No," Daniels said. He was still staring at it. "No, that's current routing." The radio cracked in Harris's hand. "Team assembled, awaiting authorization." "Waiting on us, waiting on a dead man's order." Harris lowered the mic slightly. "Tell me we're not actually doing this." Daniels looked at the terminal, then at me, then at the dark window behind us, where the east side of the base sat under floodlights like a stage nobody wanted to step onto. Finally, he said the only thing training leaves you with in a moment like that. If command sent it, we move. We crossed the east perimeter at 2:37. 6 of us. Daniels in front. Keller beside him. Me and Harris center. 2 more on rear watch. The second we stepped past the marked line, the base felt far away, much farther than it should have for the distance. The floodlights behind us seemed dimmer. The desert ahead looked thicker somehow, as if darkness could gather density. The radio started breaking up almost immediately. Not static, not exactly. It sounded more like speech being torn apart before it reached us. Fragments of syllables, half-breaths, the shape of a human voice without the words. We followed the coordinates in silence. 12 minutes out, Keller lifted a fist and the whole formation stopped. Something sat in the dark ahead. At first I thought it was rock. Then I thought it was wreckage. Then we got close enough for my light to hit an edge. And I understood neither explanation fit. It was a structure. Low, angular, half buried in sand. Not large, not military, not natural. No markings, no serial numbers, no seams. Just a matte black shape crouched in the desert exactly where the order had sent us. The air around it felt wrong. Not colder, though it was cold. Denser, like stepping into a room where pressure had changed. There was an opening on one side, a narrow vertical gap just wide enough for one man at a time. Daniels looked at me. Go. I hated him a little for that, but I went. Inside, the beam of my light slid over walls so smooth they barely looked real. No rivets, no weld marks, no dust collecting in corners. The space swallowed sound. Even my own breathing felt too small in there. Then I saw the console. One screen, already on. Pale green glow. No wires, no visible power source. No reason it should have been working. I moved closer. The display flickered once. Coordinates appeared, the same coordinates from the order. Then letters began typing onto the screen, one by one. Confirm arrival. I stopped breathing for a second. Daniels and Harris stepped in behind me. What is that? Harris whispered. No one answered. Then the radio on my vest gave one hard burst of static and cleared completely. A voice came through, calm, male, controlled. You made good time. Daniels recoiled like he'd been hit. His face changed instantly. He knew that voice. That's Voss, he said. No one moved. The dead officer's voice continued through the radio in a tone so ordinary that it made everything worse. Proceed inside. You are expected. The screen changed at the same time. Proceed inside. Harris backed up first. No. Daniels didn't correct him. That was when the structure reacted. Our lights flickered together. The radio screamed loud enough to force Keller outside to rip his earpiece out. The green screen went black, then flashed white. And the voice came back. Not calm now, sharp, immediate, angry. You were not supposed to stop. Every radio on every vest repeated it. Same voice, same authority. Proceed, proceed, proceed. We ran. Not a controlled withdrawal, not doctrine, not discipline, pure instinct. Out of the opening, across the sand, back toward the fence. I glanced behind me once. The structure looked taller than before, or closer. I still don't know which possibility is worse. We hit the perimeter at 3:12. The guards on duty looked confused, not alarmed. Confused, like they hadn't seen 6 armed men vanish into the dark 20 minutes earlier. Inside the base, everything was normal. No sirens, no flashing alerts, no elevated status at the command post. We went straight to the comms room. The order was gone, not deleted. Gone. No packet history, no incoming route, no timestamp, nothing. Daniels got command on a secured line, and reported everything exactly once. When he finished, the voice on the other end said only this: "Stand down. Log nothing further." Daniels asked about Lieutenant Colonel Voss. Long pause. Then, "There was no authorized movement tonight." The line disconnected. At sunrise, Daniels took us back to the coordinates. There was nothing there. No structure, no tracks. No sign we had ever been in that part of the desert at all. Just flat sand and low rock under a white, empty sky. Keller nearly threw up. Harris said, "No," under his breath over and over, like saying it enough times might force reality back into shape. Daniel said nothing the whole walk back. 3 nights later, I was alone in comms when the center terminal blinked once. A single line appeared on the screen. "Confirm status. No login. No signature. No source." I didn't touch it. Daniels came in behind me, saw the message, and for the first time since I'd known him, looked afraid. "Did you answer?" "No." "Good." He powered the terminal off completely. Later, when I asked him how certain he was about the voice, he didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because the last time I heard Lieutenant Colonel Voss, he was on an open channel asking for extraction that never came." We rotated off the base 11 days later. No ceremony, no explanation, no mention of what happened. A month after that, I tried to look the place up. Nothing. No listing, no records, no assignment trail that led anywhere real. Like the base itself had been scrubbed out of existence. That should have ended it. It didn't. 6 months later, Harris called me in the middle of the night. I answered half asleep. He didn't say hello. He said, "Do you still wake up around 2:14? I sat up instantly. "How do you know that?" Because I did. Almost every night. No alarm, no reason, just awake. He laughed once, dry and nervous. Because I do too. Then he told me that while working late alone in an office building in Arizona, one of the monitors on his floor, disconnected, powered down, not tied to any military network, had flashed a single line of white text on a black screen. "Confirm status." He unplugged it. The message stayed there for 3 more seconds, then vanished. Before he hung up, he said something I still think about more than I want to. "It wasn't checking if I was alive," he said. "It was checking if I'd still obey." That's the part that stays with me. Not the structure, not the desert, not even the dead man's voice. The obedience. Because maybe that's what it really was. Not a haunting, not a glitch, not some ghost story buried under military paperwork. A test. A way to find out whether authority survives death, whether training can outlive logic, whether the right command in the right voice can still make armed men walk into darkness, even when everything in them knows they shouldn't. And the truth is, it almost worked. If Daniels hadn't refused at the last second, we would have gone farther inside that thing. I don't know what inside meant. I don't know what was waiting. I only know that somewhere out there, buried under sand or hidden in a system nobody can shut down, something used the chain of command like a key. And sometimes, very late at night, when a room is completely silent and a screen lights up for no reason, I still expect to see those words again. Confirm status. So if that ever happens to you, if a dead black screen wakes up in the middle of the night and a message appears asking whether you're still there, do yourself one favor. Don't answer. Because whatever sent us that order may not be looking for the living. It may only be looking for the trained. And somewhere, somehow, it may still be waiting for someone to follow the next command.